Yeah, so obviously here on tour tonight with Sam Fender, who I know that you know from doing Buskers nights back in Liverpool.
In
Back in
Newcastle.
sorry.
Yeah.
That must be quite surreal. How surreal is that now, being on tour with him?
It is. It's really weird. It's funny to see, like, watch his gigs and like watch how they're like people are reacting. Because I did his first like proper UK tour as well, which was obviously way smaller. We played I can't remember what it was called in Glasgow, just a tiny venue, but the Garage.
Yeah.
You played there. So yeah, it's really weird. But I mean, when I talk to him, he's just, he hasn't changed in any way, shape, or form. So that's cool. But yeah, it's very weird to say the least.
You're obviously both from back in Newcastle, that's
Mm-hmm.
an area. How much of where you come from impacts on your music, do you think? I think it's got a big impact there.
I think for me, it's definitely more of like a endearing thing, because I live in London now and I've lived there for like the past 5 years, and it makes me miss Newcastle. But I think I can't remember, like, when I was in Newcastle, I didn't really write about living in Newcastle, and I didn't really include it. So I'm more inclined to include it now that I don't live there, which is because I'm trying to like have some sort of relationship with my home. But yeah.
And something else that I noticed that you and Sam have in common is like this raw, visceral power in your voice that kind of comes through as soon as you turn on the music. Was that something that you've always had, or something that kind of came with time and you worked at? Or
I think I've always had it. I've never remembered a time when I couldn't do that. I do listen to like old songs of mine and think it was obviously way weaker than it is now, because I've gotten older and my voice has gotten stronger. But no, Sam actually nicked my voice. He told me when he first saw me busking, he was telling me that he stole the way that I sing. So he owes it all to me, is what I'm saying. No, I'm kidding.
in something else that I've read you speaking at, reading a lot of artists say as well, is how cathartic music is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the moment when you like discovered how cathartic it could be at all?
I think the moment just like starting to write songs and realising that you're actually... Oh, Sam's gone on. I think when you realise that you can actually write songs, and like that's something that you can do to help with your feelings, and then also like releasing those songs. Like I think releasing my first single, Oliver, that was like, it was cool, because then the person that I wrote it about could listen to that song and like hear something that I wasn't able to tell them. So it's good in that sense, and that's probably where I realised, oh, this is what happens when you release a song.
What you were saying there about being able to say something that you couldn't tell them, is it easier then to like be honest in music than it is?
Way easier. It's so much easier. And also, like, I think writing things down, you because it's like physical, you can kind of understand it a bit more. Yeah.
So you mentioned the first single there, and obviously there are still similarities, but it has changed, a bit from that first one. What would you say is the biggest driver for changing your music that drives it forward in its evolution?
I mean, when I first wrote Oliver, I hadn't even picked up an electric guitar, and I think just the more I listen, the more I get older, the more like, I don't know, I just mature more, and like you get into more darker stuff, and like, well, I did, and a lot of the music that I now listen to is kind of rock, indie rock from like, like Mazzy Star and things like that. So I think I wanted to say what I couldn't say with like that kind of music.
Did it take you a while, or was it quite quick to find the kind of style of music that you wanted to play that best conveyed the message?
It took me ages. I think it's really hard to like actually find a sound that you want, because you have to find players that suit you as well, and like you have to find people that you're friends with, and like it took like, yeah, I think also like I went on a journey where I was like writing with a band, and then I was like, oh, I don't like their influences, and then when I started doing my own thing, that's when I was like, so yeah, it took me a while, but got there in the end, I think.
You mentioned finding players there. I know some tour where you got Bill is also your producer. What's that like, having someone who's that close to the music you're making on stage with you every night?
Oh shit, is this okay?
Yeah.
It's funny, like, it's great actually. The only reason I hate being on stage with Bill is because he'll like talk about the way that I speak to the audience, and like other than that it's fine. So I tend to not talk when I've got like to the audience when I've got Bill on stage with me. But other than that, like we've obviously like talked through everything that the songs are about, and he knows them like personally, so like it's actually great. It's like really nice.
How did you first meet him and start working with him as a producer?
I'd never heard of him, to be honest, and then my label like were like sending me a list of producers to work with, and I was like, okay, like I'll have a phone call with this Bill guy, because he's like done a lot of like the music that I kind of like, and then I had a phone call with him, and he was just like really charismatic and lovely, and I just immediately wanted to start working with him, and then I did. Yeah.
What sort of thing do you look for in a producer when you're thinking about working with them?
They have to be like collaborative. They have to like, with Bill I think it was important to have him like as a guitarist and like as a songwriter himself to like understand how it works and how like what I was trying to do, especially because we like a lot of the same music, so I think that's important as well.
So is it the last two singles he's done with you, or is he done with it? Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause the last one I kind of hear his kind of vibe and stuff in the guitars. One of the things I really like about your music is that each song has quite a cohesive sound to it, and everything sounds like it belongs, and that song is quite whole.
Yeah.
Do you have a process for deciding what goes into a song and what's right and what's not, or how do you go about that?
Not really. We just kind of keep adding until it sounds a bit much, you know, and then sometimes we like, for some of the songs on the album, so like All My Friends Are Drunk, that first single, we had to like, we did loads of different versions for it, and like the drums, like it was going to be like a big single, and then it just didn't work. So I think it's more about like, instead of adding and taking away, it's like starting from scratch, or you know what I mean.
The songs typically tend to change quite a lot over their lifespan at all, or are they?
From when I first write them, they do. The main like melody and stuff like that is there, but everything else kind of like comes together in the studio.
In terms of the album, compared to the first two singles that have just come out for it, is it quite similar? Is it quite a cohesive album, or is there a lot? Is it quite eclectic?
I think it's quite. I think because of my voice, it's cohesive, because like that's the one thing that keeps it all in the same box. But I think all the songs are quite. Every time I write a song, it sounds different. Like there's some like really like Neil Young-y inspired songs. But yeah, I think it works now because it's like got the visuals and stuff like that. But I think when I first wrote it, I was like, is this gonna be an album? But yeah.
Kind of coming towards the end, but if you had to pick two albums for your album to sit between on a shelf, which two do you think?
Oh my god. I think Yo La Tengo Painful and Angel Olsen, Burn Your Fire for No Witness. Yeah.
One left to finish up on. In the music you make, what do you think is more important and why? Meaning or emotion?
Ooh. Emotion. Yeah, I think emotion. I don't think it necessarily has to make sense. But I think if the emotion's there, then that's going to come through more than... Because you could sing something with meaning without be blasé about it, and like I just don't think that's as interesting. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.